Inside, everybody was saying, I get shot, I get shot.
I so frightened and scared, so I don't know who and why.
Bullet holes now riddle a popular Little Jamaica restaurant after a drive-by shooting leaves 6 people injured. The early morning shooting happened as a group of people were taking shelter from the rain out front of Spence's. It's a well-known 24-hour neighborhood bakery and restaurant. And a warning, some of the images you're about to see are graphic. Greg Ross is live tonight outside the store. And Greg, what are investigators saying tonight?
Well, Chris, we're told that this was a targeted shooting. Police believe that it was gang-related, which is why the Guns and Gangs unit has now taken over this investigation. But maybe the most disturbing part of this whole thing is that several of the victims were said to not be involved in any kind of gang activity. Police say they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Bullet holes, broken glass, and blood-stained floors. The remnants of Toronto's latest brazen shooting.
I was inside and I hear the shot firing.
Loxley Brissett owns Spence's Bakery on Eglinton Avenue. 5 men and 1 woman were standing in front of his shop when they were shot just after 2 o'clock this morning. Brissett says he's lucky to be alive because one of the stray bullets narrowly missed hitting him in the head.
And everybody was running inside. So I run downstairs.
All of the victims suffered non-life-threatening injuries. The motive for the shooting appears to be gang-related. Police say the 6 victims had all gathered under this overhang at Spence's Bakery to escape the rain. They ranged in age from 30 to 69. Police also say that at least 1 and possibly more of them were considered the target in this shooting. They also say that several of the victims were considered to be innocent bystanders.
The complete disregard for who's around. Whether young, old, it doesn't matter. All they see is a target now. They get focused on that target, and it doesn't matter who's hit.
According to police, the suspects were driving a black SUV.
They drove by and they slowed down enough to swing back, come back to the location, and just randomly shoot.
Brissett says his shop is not known as a hangout for gang members, and he's having a hard time understanding why they would do something like this here.
We never had this kind of problem before. I lived there since 1980, and it's the first I saw something like this.
Waking up to the news of the shooting had many in this neighborhood voicing their frustration this morning.
My God, these guys are shooting up the town. It's no good.
I think that it's really unfortunate that we have so much gang violence in the city and that innocent people got hurt. Of the 6 victims, all of them were taken to hospital following the shooting. We were told that 5 of them were released from hospital early this morning. The final victim that was in hospital, we're told, was supposed to be released at some point this afternoon. Now, I can tell you that tensions were already high in this community because of a violent clash between police and somebody who was attending a rally just about a block from where I'm standing right now. So this comes on the heels of a time when, again, tensions were already high here, Chris. People in this community just scratching their heads, not sure what to make of the violence that's happening right now.
All right, thanks for this update tonight, Greg. Another shooting overnight left a man dead, and detectives searching for a vehicle that took off from the scene.
We have limited information at this point in terms of suspects. We do believe there was a dark-colored vehicle. That vehicle was last seen traveling eastbound on Stylecroft Drive towards Keele Street.
So as you heard there, it happened on Stylecroft Drive near Keele and Shepherd around 5 this morning. Officers found a 50-year-old man seated in a van with a gunshot wound to his upper body. The vehicle's driver's side window was shattered. The man was pronounced dead in the hospital a short time later. Detectives believe it was a targeted shooting, but at this point, they don't think it's connected to any other recent shootings. In Brampton, the family of a Brampton man who was attacked and killed last month is calling for the teen charged with his murder to be tried as an adult.
This can happen to anybody in a 3 p.m., so nobody is safe in the city. Taking somebody's life is not a minor crime. And I will add on to this, like, Crown Attorney have a power to trial them as adults. That's what we want.
Surajdeep Singh was walking home around 3 in the afternoon last month when a few people approached him wanting his cell phone. The international student was then attacked and killed. Police say a 16-year-old has been charged with second-degree murder and cannot be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. The mayor of Brampton is supporting the Singh family's request and is writing a letter to the Attorney General stating that this crime deserves a harsh penalty. Toronto's medical officer of health had some sobering words today about the city's COVID-19 numbers. Dr. Eileen Davila warning they are going up, and she's concerned about that trend ahead of the Labor Day long weekend.
The choices we make this Labor Day weekend have the potential to affect all of us in the weeks and months ahead.
So let's get to the numbers. There have been 48 new infections in Toronto since yesterday. This week alone, the city has recorded 123 new COVID cases. Dr. Davila says as the weather cools down and people spend more time indoors, we will see more cases of the disease. She is urging residents to continue to follow public health guidelines. The Jane and Finch community in Toronto is among the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. And tonight, an event is underway trying to bring attention to the issues facing residents. Angelina King joins us live tonight from the neighborhood. And Angelina, what are people telling you tonight?
Well, today is all about bringing people together, but also trying to raise awareness. They want the government to listen to people from outside of the community. So this event is kind of like a trade show, but for issues plaguing the community. Residents can go to different tables that are set up to not only discuss these things, but also learn about some of the community help and assistance that is out there. So they're discussing things like housing, policing, food insecurity, jobs, education, public transportation. And organizers here say that these issues are not new. The community has been dealing with them for years, but the pandemic has heightened them all.
We're here to share experiences and learn from each other. I think what we're demonstrating is the intersectionality of these issues. This community has been neglected over decades of divestment and lack of good leadership, really, to be honest, in this neighborhood.
So I was speaking with some longtime residents of the neighborhood, and they say that more events like these are needed. They say not only did it give kids something to do during the pandemic, but it brought the community together, and they say they learned a lot as well.
We're actually happy with what we are seeing here. It's all about knowledge, you know, they're teaching us stuff that we didn't know about in the community. And they're giving out sanitizer, masks, all these stuff is also is needed in this time, right? So it helps, right?
The government definitely has to do a little bit of community outreaching and see what's going on with the community, especially ones like this that need the government support because of the poverty.
So organizers say they hope all levels of government step up to help address some of the inequalities that the neighborhood is dealing with. Now, in statements from both the province and the city, both outlined ways they say that they have been addressing poverty and some of these systemic issues. The province pointing to a new poverty reduction strategy it's working on as we move through this pandemic. And the city says that in June it launched its Jane Finch initiative, saying that plan will help address some of the inequalities in the area. And organizers say amid all of these issues that they are dealing with, the community is still very resilient, and events like this one tonight really help demonstrate that. Chris?
Thanks, Angelina. Meanwhile, the Toronto District School Board has just released their registration numbers for this upcoming school year, and 70% of elementary students, kindergarten to grade 8, are planning to attend school in person, while 30% opted for virtual learning. For high school students, 78% chose an in-person option, and 22% opted for e-learning. Now, if you've registered your child to attend school, here's a question that's probably on your mind. What will happen if there are cases of COVID-19 at my child's school? Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley explains.
School has resumed in some provinces, and scenes like this will soon come to schoolyards around Ontario as kids head back to class over the next 2 weeks. While the merits of Ontario's plan for the return to school are up for debate, one thing is certain: cases of COVID-19 will appear among students or staff. The question is how many and whether they spread.
I think that we probably are going to see cases here and there, though I think that these will be picked up relatively quickly.
When a student or staff member tests positive for COVID-19, here's what's supposed to happen. The public health unit informs the school about the case. The school must post the news on its website without identifying the individual. And anyone who had close contact with the case at the school would get notified directly by public health.
They would, very quickly take this as a high priority and organize that all the other students in that cohort and the teacher be sent home and isolated, and if they develop symptoms, get tested.
If a school sees 2 or more confirmed cases that appear to be linked, public health must declare an outbreak.
When an outbreak happens, what that means is that, in general, the public health will look a bit more closely. They might, number one, make decisions on closing certain classes, closing the entire school, but also they'll do a lot more extensive testing.
There's no specific number of cases that would trigger closing a school. The province's guidelines just say public health should consider closure if there's evidence of widespread transmission.
That is when we would be considering possibly either closing just certain classes or the whole school. It depends on where the cases are and how much they've mixed with others. And are they all in the same grade? Are they in different grades?
To try to reduce the chances of widespread transmission, parents are urged not to send their kids to school if they're showing any symptoms of COVID-19. If a student becomes sick during the school day, they're to be isolated immediately until a parent can come take them home. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And we are looking for parents, teachers, and students who can help us cover issues surrounding back to school this September. We actually have a form on our website, cbc.ca/Toronto, where you can share your concerns. Tell us about how school conditions are going and how classes are going as well. We will monitor the responses, follow up where we can, and take the issues you raise to the people in power. So as officials brace for more people to get COVID-19 in the weeks ahead, cases of the disease are way down in long-term care homes. That, of course, is positive news, considering it wasn't that long ago that COVID-19 cut a deadly path through many long-term care facilities in the province. Lorenda Redekop now has more on what experts are saying needs to happen to prevent a resurgence.
They all work with seniors and are encouraged by the numbers this week. No new cases among long-term care residents today, 1 yesterday. But people are aware that could change.
We are worried that it's going to be a combination of a second wave of COVID-19 plus flu and viral pneumonia. That's actually the worst case scenario.
To help prevent that, she says staffing numbers need to rise. And for residents, wherever possible, rooms and bathrooms shouldn't be shared. But she says seniors can't be isolated again for months on end to protect them physically and mentally.
It's urgently important that we don't just put a lockdown around long-term care, but we think about how to live with COVID-19. It's going to be a marathon and not a sprint.
Today, the Premier credited staff at these homes for the drop in cases.
Those PSWs, they're overworked, they're underpaid, and I'm going to make sure we take care of that because they deserve more money.
But they're making less money than they were a few weeks ago. They just lost their extra pandemic pay top-up and are still only allowed to work in one home.
They have to make these precarious jobs, full-time jobs, so that people can earn a living and have the benefits that they need, that if they're sick, they stay home. The numbers are down, which we're all thankful for, but the second surge is knocking on our door and we're not ready for it.
Today, the province confirmed 8 homes that had outbreaks they weren't containing are still being managed by hospitals. Just one of the measures the province hopes will prevent a resurgence in COVID-19 in the fall. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Still ahead, we're there as a 99-year-old veteran completes his goal of walking 100 kilometers around his Newmarket Seniors residence before his 100th birthday. Why he did it is coming up later in the show. Quite the mixed bag when it came to weather today. It was sunny at points, it was raining at points, windy. I mean, What a day.
Just a little bit of everything. Something for everyone in there, Chris. Yeah, let's start off with those winds. We'll pull that out because often the winds can just tell you so much about the weather picture and what's going on. And why don't we begin with just the direction? So look at those arrows. They tell us that, yeah, they're from the west now, that our frontal boundary has essentially gone on through. It's that drying trend that we've been seeing as it dried out from west to east. And as it's pushed through, we saw some stronger gusts earlier, almost to 60 kilometers an hour reported at Oshawa, the executive airport there, and at Pearson, almost to 60. City Center, it was closer to about 50 kilometers an hour. And these are now the sustained winds, and they're not that gusty now as that front has trekked off well off to the east of us. Temperatures still relatively warm here. We're sitting in those mid-20s. It feels like we're close to 30 with our humidex values, so we've still got some heat there, even though the front has gone through. Showers, like I said, those are trekked off to the east. They're making haste out of the province even, but well off to the east. Still some severe thunderstorm watches in place towards the nation's capital, but those will be dropped soon as those are leaving the province. Overnight, we get this clearing trend, 15 for the low, a little bit of patchy fog as possible. We still have the warmth tomorrow and some humidity, feeling like we're in the low 30s, but folks, it's the last day and then things are changing. So if you've been enjoying the heat, there it is for you. I'm going to talk about the changes coming for the long weekend, Chris. That's all coming up.
Right, we will stay tuned for that. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
At this hour, the Tibetan community is welcoming home one of their own. Pema Kunga has spent the last week running a marathon from Ottawa to Toronto. His goal was to gather support and raise awareness of Tibet's fight for sovereignty from China. And it comes on the 60th anniversary of Tibetan Democracy Day. Marivel Tarouk caught up with Kunga as he neared his final destination, the Chinese consulate in Toronto.
The rallying cry for Pema Kunga and his supporters on the final leg of his Marathon for Tibet, a 400-kilometer journey that started 1 week ago today in Ottawa.
He's saying that he's really fortunate to have a great country like Canada, that we have a right of speech, so that's why he took this opportunity and he wanted to do this for so long.
It means running 50 kilometers a day for the past 8 days, taking time off work and picking up support from Tibetans and non-Tibetans alike. Kunga has also started an online petition demanding a dialogue between China and Tibet. The return of the Dalai Lama, Tibet's spiritual leader who was forced into exile in 1959, and, they say, calling attention to the oppression Tibetans face under Chinese rule.
We're talking about basic human rights. It's like this, we're living in Canada and we're talking in Tibetan, and if someone says like, you can't talk in Tibetan, this is Canada, how are you going to feel? So it's the same thing. We don't have a basic right in our own country, Tibet.
Independent observers have consistently ranked Tibet as one of the least free places in the world. Thousands of Tibetans have fled their homes, with roughly 10,000 settling in Toronto. It's the largest Tibetan diaspora outside of Asia. It's support from his community and thoughts of their struggle that kept Kunga going, with a message he says he won't stop sharing.
So he's just asking for, he wants other countries to step up and do something for us. And we've been asking this since 1959.
Marivel Tarouk, CBC News, Toronto.
When we come back, the story of a doctor fighting back.
In one day, everything was destroyed.
He says he was unfairly blamed for a COVID-19 outbreak in New Brunswick, then faced death threats, including a threat of lynching. Now he is speaking out and wants more than just an apology. That exclusive story is coming up next. In May, the New Brunswick government announced that a COVID-19 outbreak in Campbellton was caused by a doctor who didn't self-isolate after returning from Quebec. But the doctor says he was unfairly targeted and has suffered extreme hardship as a result. And now he is fighting back. Judy Trin has the exclusive story.
In this border town, the Restigouche River separates New Brunswick from Quebec. This is Campbellton. 7 years ago, it embraced this immigrant doctor from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
You can go to Campbellton to ask what kind of physician is Dr. Angola. I love these populations. But in one day, everything was destroyed.
They put this photo already on the internet. Everything changed on May 27th, the day his COVID test came back positive. Within an hour, Ngola's name was leaked online, blamed for spreading the virus, then subjected to racist attacks on social media for weeks, like this one calling for his lynching.
They attack your pictures everywhere, and people become this guy. He's a small refugee. He come here, he bring the disease to spread everywhere.
3 hours later, the premier pointed to the doctor as the source of a new outbreak in Campbellton.
A medical professional who traveled to Quebec for personal reason was not forthcoming about their reasons for travel upon returning to New Brunswick, and they did not self-isolate as a result.
The premier did not name Ngola directly in his news conference, but 2 hours after his remarks, the doctor was suspended without pay from his job at the Campbellton Hospital. Then around supper time, he was notified that his 4-year-old daughter also tested positive for COVID-19. His life was in tatters within 6 hours.
Medicine for me is my life. I love medicine. I love medicine. But to be separated with my patients, it was also a shock for me.
Soon, Ngola was under a police investigation, all because he traveled to Montreal to pick up his daughter after her mother flew to Africa to attend a funeral. Before leaving Campbellton, Ngola called the provincial COVID hotline. He says he was told he didn't have to self-isolate when he returned because he was an essential worker.
They told me that you are physicians. When you'll be back in New Brunswick, there is no problem.
Joel Etienne is Ngola's lawyer. He says the doctor was scapegoated for the outbreak and will sue.
Calling on the criminalization of something that is not criminal, making accusations, singling out without any evidence. The province decided to act in a fashion that was completely contrary to how it should have been acting with respect to every other citizen.
The Campbellton outbreak grew to more than 40 cases and spread to a long-term care home where 2 residents died. Ngola's legal team hired a former RCMP officer to do their own contact tracing. The process took 30 days.
It's very, very unlikely that he is patient 0. There's so many other possibilities for that, and it doesn't appear to me that any of these possibilities have been examined until Dr. Ngola retained his counsel.
The investigator retraced Ngola's road trip on May 12 from Campbellton to Montreal. He spent the night at his brother's house, then left the next morning with his daughter. His brother would later test negative for the virus. Shortly before noon, Ngola stops in Trois-Rivières and meets with 2 local doctors to talk about joining their practice. They speak for about 20 minutes. The meeting in Trois-Rivières,
yes.
You're physically distanced,
Physically distanced, mask and gloves.
After that, they stop in La Pocatière to buy gas and food. By 6 p.m., they're at the border in Edmundston and home by 9. Epidemiologists say it's unlikely Ngola was infected.
Overall, I mean, it's a short time. He wasn't in contact with a very small number of people. It would seem that the risk would be reasonably low of having actually been in contact with COVID-19 and contracted during that time, but not impossible.
Vitalite, we do not know if he's patient 1, 0, 4, or 5. We're not privy to that information.
Gilles Tang was Ngola's boss. The CEO of the Vitalite Health Network suspended the doctor from working in the Campbellton Hospital. He says it was because Ngola broke the COVID protocol, not because of political pressure.
I would say that things happened very quickly, and that you know, from our angle, The situation was that Dr. Angola was supposed to inform us if he was leaving the province.
Ngola believes he got the virus from working in the emergency room. 90 Campbellton hospital workers, or 10% of staff, live in Quebec and cross over daily. The hospital depends on the help of more than 20 doctors from outside the province to provide services. These doctors don't isolate, and 20% of the hospital's patients are from Quebec.
It's not based in facts, but it's also not based in fairness. This is beyond the control of human measure.
Fighting for re-election, the premier is unapologetic.
I had no knowledge of the individual until it appeared in social media. So the concerns that I've had throughout this pandemic is that we have to be cautious.
In the meantime, Ngola is focused on building a practice in a different small town, this time in Louisville, Quebec, where as a doctor, he doesn't have to cross borders to see his daughter. Judy Trin, CBC News, Gatineau.
Ontario's cannabis regulator has promised to double monthly store approvals as officials continue to try to combat the illegal market. I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, we speak with people who work in the cannabis industry and get their opinion on this new announcement.
More legal pot shops could be coming, and faster than before. The province is rolling out a plan to double the amount of cannabis stores it approves. But some in the cannabis industry say the plan is still too much of a slow burn. Talia Ricci joins us live now from Cafe. And Talia, that is one of the illegal dispensaries operating in the city.
That's right, Chris, and that's actually part of the reason some of the people I spoke with in the cannabis industry today say that this approval process should be even faster. There is still room for business in the black market, like the shop behind me. Now, the city does investigate these unlicensed stores and says there's still around 9 currently operating in Toronto. But for those who have gone through the long process of trying to open a legal shop, they did say that this announcement brings some relief.
It's been a long road to get to this point.
And now one of the women behind independent cannabis company Urban Green says she can see the light at the end of the tunnel as Ontario's cannabis regulator promises to double monthly store approvals.
We do hope that it's going to bring our opening date a little bit sooner than currently. Right now we're working with a January 2021 opening date. So that's sitting on property for 6 months without bringing in any revenue. So by doubling that rate, we hope to cut that waiting period in about half.
One business professor says the pace of approvals up until now has been too slow, especially after the province scrapped the lottery process.
I think most people in the industry would be pleased with it, although frankly I'd still like to see the numbers even go a little bit higher, at least in the short term, to try to deal with the backlog.
And also the demand. According to the Commission, 150 stores are currently open in Ontario.
Whereas in Alberta there's more than 400 stores open for a population about 1/4 the size.
And if the demand isn't being met, it leaves space for the illegal market to thrive.
There's no doubt whatsoever that our every objective is to win consumers over from the legacy market. So it is progress, but it's progress which is occurring in a situation where there's quite a queue of applicants that's built up. They've submitted all that they've been asked to submit, and all they're waiting is for a response to that. So every day seems like agony, I'm sure.
Miller continues to wait in line to get the seal of approval, hopefully now sooner than expected.
We've been working towards this, we've been advocating for it, we've been making our voices heard as much as we can about the struggle that it's been waiting after all the work that we've put in.
Now, the Commission says that it continues to work with the government to increase the number of monthly approvals. It'll also be reaching out to all of the affected applicants to let them know if there's a new date their shop will get the green light. Chris?
All right, thanks for this tonight, Talia. Dozens of experts are calling on the Ontario government to explain why they are allowing a province-wide hunt on a species of bird that is set to begin in in the next few weeks. The bird in question is the double-breasted cormorant. Cormorants are aquatic fish-eating birds, and you can find plenty of them in Tommy Thompson Park. They came close to being endangered a century ago, but their populations have since rebounded. The province says the hunt is necessary because the cormorants deplete fish stocks and their droppings damage trees. 51 experts in ecology, fisheries sciences, and natural resource management have now written a letter to the Minister of Natural Resources. It is asking the province for a scientific explanation behind the hunt. The experts say the province hasn't indicated what population of the bird it wants and is concerned those who do hunt the birds won't need to report how many of them they have killed. The hunt will begin September 15th and run until the end of the year, and hunters will be allowed to kill up to 15 birds a day from motorboats. Staying in the skies, air traffic controllers in Los Angeles kept their cool after fielding some unusual calls about a mystery flyer near the airport last weekend.
Tower, American 1997. We just passed a guy in a jetpack.
American 1997, okay. JetBlue 23, use caution. Person in a jetpack reported 300 yards south of the LA final at about 3,000 feet, 10-mile final.
JetBlue 23, we're hurting. You're definitely looking.
Only in LA.
Only in LA. The control tower issued the advisory after getting sightings from 2 pilots. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration is investigating, and experts say it's unlikely to have been a person with a jetpack, since flying that high and returning to Earth is not feasible with existing technology. They say such a maneuver would also be difficult for a drone. Anything wild you're seeing in our skies, Colette?
Not like that.
No,
but
definitely
yeah,
not.
I guess apparently they don't carry enough fuel to get them to that height and then back down safely. So, it's a mystery what that was. Your weather, not so much a mystery. I can break this down for you of what we're looking at over the next little while here. We've got one more warm and humid day ahead, and not as humid as today, but enjoy it if this is the kind of weather you like. If you like it a little more comfortable, a little cooler, we've got that coming up on Friday, and as we go into the holiday weekend, in between a few light showers late tomorrow. And then for the holiday weekend, in terms of wet conditions, it looks like late Sunday into Monday. That's when we could pick up some inclement weather, so kind of plan for that. And I'll help you as we look at the 5-day forecast. Your current temperatures are in the mid-20s. We still have some humidity as well, so that's what you're looking at, kind of feeling like around 30. Those rain showers from the frontal boundary, I was talking about how the winds have now turned towards the west, still a little bit gusty. We're seeing some wind gusts, 40, 45 kilometers an hour still, but they are easing off. So we're seeing the rain well over towards eastern Ontario, around Prescott, towards Cornwall. They're still looking at severe thunderstorm watch. Otherwise, they have been dropped through those areas. So we get into a clearing trend, a little patchy fog as possible through the overnight tonight. That'll burn off early tomorrow morning as we'll look at some sunshine, a little bit of mix at sometimes towards tomorrow morning. Otherwise, it's sun until late day. So we're talking as we get towards 7, 8 o'clock as this weaker front comes through. But this one's important because maybe we get some light showers, sure, but it's important because it's going to bring the dew points down. That's going to take some of the humidity out of the air and bring in the cooler temperatures, but also the more comfortable air as we go into Friday and, as I say, into the holiday weekend. So cooler temperatures tonight for your overnight sleeping conditions, but tomorrow afternoon that heat is back, 27, 28 for your highs, feeling like the low 30s. But here you go, Friday 22, that's it, closer to seasonal, in fact a little below. Saturday 24 with sunshine. It's late Sunday. I mean, this is still a few days out, but that's how it's looking with the temperatures and the timing here as we go into the holiday weekend, with that next chance of getting into showers after late tomorrow night, Chris.
And Saturday is looking dynamite.
Saturday is looking fantastic. You're right about that one.
All right, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
We've got an update for you now about the lawsuit involving a police officer and Toronto Raptors president Masai Ujiri. The officer's legal team alleges Ujiri's counterclaim of the incident that happened at the NBA Finals is driven by race and a bias against law enforcement. Ujiri's claim last month included this video of the altercation, which showed the officer, Alan Strickland, violently shoving the Raptors executive as he tried to get on the court after the team won the NBA title. Ujiri says he was reminded in that moment that some people will see him as unworthy of respectful engagement because he is black. In the court document, Strickland's team says the counterclaim is a willful attempt to mislead the media and the public and taint the jury pool. The trial is underway in Paris for people charged in the attacks on a satirical magazine and a kosher supermarket. 17 people and all 3 gunmen died over 3 days in January 2015. Cindy Palm reports that the mood surrounding the trial is tense.
The wife of a Charlie Hebdo journalist who was killed in the attack said she could feel the tension in the courtroom. Gala Renault explained she wanted to be there in person to see what the defendants looked like. 14 people are being tried, charged with supplying weapons to the gunmen, financing terrorism, and being part of a terrorism organization. 3 out of the 14 are believed to have fled to Syria, so they're being tried in absentia. The magazine has decided to republish caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad that prompted the attack in the first place. Charlie Hebdo's editors said it was essential to publish the cartoons as the trial begins in order for the public to see the evidence for themselves, and that not publishing them would be cowardly. In January 2015, two brothers stormed the Paris offices of Charlie Hebdo and killed 12 people, including some of their best-known cartoonists. In the following days, another gunman killed a policewoman and 4 people at a Jewish supermarket. All 3 gunmen were killed by police. After the attacks, millions of people marched in the streets of Paris under the slogan Je suis Charlie, or I am Charlie. Then French President François Hollande and other world leaders also showed solidarity. Today, Hollande said Charlie Hebdo had the right to publish the caricatures because of freedom of expression, echoing the sentiment of the current president, Emmanuel Macron, who refused to condemn the magazine's decision. This trial will be the first terrorism-related one in France to be filmed, for archival purposes, and also to not forget what happened. Cindy Palm, CBC News, London.
Testing has determined that Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was poisoned with a Soviet-era nerve agent. German authorities made the announcement today and demanded a transparent investigation. Navalny, who is a fierce critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin, is being treated in Berlin. Chris Brown has more.
Well, the language from Germany's government is very clear and very concise about what they believe happened to Alexei Navalny. Their statement is saying there is now unequivocal evidence of a chemical nerve agent of the Novichok type that was used to poison Alexei Navalny about 2.5 weeks ago now. Now, this is the same weapons-grade nerve agent that was used in the attack on Yulia and Sergei Skripal in Salisbury, England, back in 2018. This is an attack that the United States and the United Kingdom believe was perpetrated by Russian Secret Service agents. They even have photographic evidence of these men being in that area at the time. But this raises many disturbing questions. Who exactly authorized this attack? This is not the kind of substance that's readily available just to anyone. It was developed in the Soviet Union. It was kept in a secret location. The stockpiles were supposedly destroyed at the end of the Cold War, but of course, as we know, some was used in the earlier attack. But who authorized this? If it was Vladimir Putin, well, that's terrifying that he used this to attack his biggest political opponent. If it wasn't Vladimir Putin, it's equally terrifying because it means someone else didn't feel that they need this high level of approval, and they went and they did it themselves. One of Navalny's advisors is already saying on Twitter that this is essentially, because it was Novichok, as though Putin has left his autograph at the scene of the crime. Alexei Navalny is now recovering in hospital in Berlin. All we know is that he was severely injured by this attack. If it wasn't for the fact that the airline pilot who was flying him back to Moscow from Siberia, if he hadn't have landed, Navalny would probably be dead by now. We haven't had an update. We just know that his condition is improving and it's no longer life-threatening. In terms of Russian reaction, well, already we're starting to hear a direction it may go. Some Kremlin news sources are saying, well, this couldn't have been Novichok, because if it was Novichok, it would have had some different kind of effect. So from the very beginning, they've tried to suggest that there was no merit to these allegations. In fact, this is likely something Navalny did to himself. That's going to be much more difficult to prove. Last time, we know that the EU and NATO countries imposed many diplomatic and economic sanctions on Russia because of the Skripal attack. And we understand right now that the Germans are having similar discussions with their Western allies. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
I'm Ismail Alpha, host of Metro Morning. On tomorrow's show, we continue to guide you through getting back to school during a pandemic. Now, it's not just elementary and secondary students who will have to adapt. We'll speak with a University of Toronto professor about what he's doing to get prepared to teach in person. Join me weekdays from 5:30 till 8:30 on Metro Morning, CBC Radio 1.
Welcome back. The boy band from South Korea, known as BTS, is making history. They have become the first all-South Korean group to top the Billboard Hot 100 in the U.S. As Eli Glasner explains, it is a success that could change the sound of pop music.
Call it a bop or a jam, what Dynamite is a record breaker, smashing the record for the most YouTube views in 24 hours before making that debut at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 chart, a first for a South Korean band.
I personally really enjoyed it. I'm still waiting to cover it myself.
This fan makes her own K-pop parody videos. She says Dynamite is already creating converts.
I played it for my non-K-pop friends and they're like, oh wow, what song is this? It's so catchy. And I'm gonna go search it up. And one of my friends couldn't stop watching the music video and she's a non-fan.
This music writer says it's all part of the BTS blueprint for success.
Before the track was even released, they put out a 10-second teaser, and there was like already a dance challenge on TikTok about Dynamite, and people kind of like speculating the choreography.
Dynamite is just the latest smash for the Korean supergroup, who've sold over 20 million physical albums in 7 years. Lainey Louie is a BTS believer. She credits the fan base, but also savvy planning.
Very few artists release this much new music in 1 year. But they took advantage of Dynamite, the fact that they had never released an all-English song. They felt like the world needed a positive song right now.
She admits having a little trepidation about them singing in English, but not after she heard it.
They're singing in accents. They're singing in not whatever perfect sounding English is supposed to look like. That is not the Queen's English. For me personally, I'm not Korean, I'm Chinese. My parents speak with accents. So it's so relatable on that level, but it's so meaningful and powerful on that level.
Yeah. Power to change the very sound of pop music itself. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
Astronomers have made an amazing discovery, the most massive merging of two black holes ever seen. I want to show you a computer simulation of the collision deep in space. The signal from this event traveled for about 7 billion years to reach Earth, and it rattled laser detectors in the U.S. and Italy last year. The colliding black holes produced an entity 142 times bigger than the Sun. Until now, this kind of event existed only in theory. More amazing stories coming up right here on CBC Toronto News at 6. Finally for us tonight, at 99 years old, George Markoff decided he wanted to achieve something great before his next birthday. So he challenged himself to walk 100 kilometers around his Newmarket retirement home and raise $100,000 for hospitals and COVID research. Today he completed his last lap and has raised almost $50,000. To celebrate, he got a special surprise. Take a look.
Canadian people are very generous. Whatever happens, anywhere, tragedy or anything bad, people are ready to help out, always lifting people up.
Canada's been very good to my dad, and that's his way of saying thank you to Canada and to the people of Canada.
From the beginning, I went overboard a little bit. Highest I ever had was 56 rounds.
In one day. So it takes, yeah,
then
it takes.
But I slowed down.
It takes 15 laps around the garden to equal 1 kilometer. So to reach the 100 kilometers, he had to go 1,500 times. So today we are approaching that last lap to equal 100 kilometers. But he's not stopping, are you, Dad?
No, I still walk for myself. I enjoy it. And try to encourage people to do. And they walking, a lot of people walking here.
I hear you're a huge fan. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you do. You're a huge inspiration to us and to the whole community here. And we're so proud of you for what you're doing, and thank you for raising all this money. And I want to present you with this jersey. You're the captain. He's 99 years old, and he's going out every day and he's walking to raise money for COVID relief. It's pretty special for him to be doing this, and happy to be here. He's a lifelong Leaf fan, and it was great to meet him.
I'm overwhelmed. Just can't believe that happened to me.
I believe it because guiding me, teaching me, inspiring me, and it comes from within in him, and I'm just so proud. I never dreamed that my father would be able to do this at this age with the COVID-19 and so many things being shut down and all the activities. This has given him a purpose. This has given him a reason to get up in the morning and go out and walk. So it's a win-win situation, and I've won all my life because he's my dad.
What a beautiful story. I have so many things I want to say about that. But I mean, he wanted to encourage us, and I feel encouraged. Don't you, Colette?
Yeah, I love it. And I love it. She says she's won all her life because it's her dad. And that's it. You got to find something that motivates you, and that's exactly what he's done. It keeps him going around that garden, and he's going to keep going, which is awesome. Here's where we're going tonight, to a low of 15 degrees. That's what we have for you as we get into a clearing trend. I say that, yet there could be a little bit of patchy fog, so be aware of that if you are some kind of a shift worker or something that's going to take you in the overnight hours out on the roadways. There could be some reduced visibility, okay? Sunshine tomorrow, 27, feeling like the low 30s, but late tomorrow into the evening hours, a front goes through with some showers and brings in the cooler air, Chris.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Colette. And that is our show for you tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow night at 6. Have a great night.